edges of the night. Oh, I was alone, out in the dark, and I saw hollow squares all around. Oh, I was alone, out in the dark. Heaven was all around. Oh,
Hello and welcome to Lave Radio.
Greetings and welcome to Lave Radio.
Greetings, Commanders.
Greetings, Commanders.
The show that talks about the universe of Elite.
And the development of the computer game Elite 4, known as Elite Dangerous.
And the fantastic
community that surrounds it.
Broadcast from the Sidewinder and hosted by a vending machines technician.
A place of nonsense and innuendo for forum dads.
A self-contained podcast 2 hours long.
Transmitting to every corner of the galaxy.
It's even louder than me.
The hottest show this side of Dizzo.
The name of the place.
Lave Radio.
Lave Radio.
Lave Radio.
Lave Radio.
Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to episode 485 of Lave Radio, the show that likes to talk about the universe of Elite and the fantastic community that surrounds it. I'm your host, Commander Phoenix Defire, Chief Archivist of Lave Station, otherwise known as Colin Ford, and joining us in the Orange Sidewinder bar for this episode, we have our SRV Banksy, Commander Alec Turner.
Evening, folks.
We have our Head of Health and Safety, Commander Ed Levice, otherwise known as Ben Moss Woodward.
Hey, Belterlider! I'm Batman. There you go, Wintermute.
Was that a bet?
It was a bet. Well, it was a dare.
Okay. We have our Staff Liaison Officer. That would be Commander Psychic, otherwise known as Claire.
I almost forgot how to talk then because of how much cringe I just did, Ben. What the fuck?
Yeah, there was the sigh of cringe. I had a sigh of cringe.
No, it's just, it's like pulling teeth sometimes being with these lads, not going to lie.
Okay, that's off to a good start. And making a great impression on this person, yes, we have the ex-FDev god, that would be Derin.
Hi.
Hello. We've just given you the position of ex-FDev god, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure, let's pander to Derin some. Let's see how that works out.
Is that because I'm ex-FDev or I've like dropped from Divinity?
Yes.
You know, whichever one you feel most comfortable with. So if you wish, you can press one.
Next thing you know is that it's Derin's foreskin that's around Saturn.
Oh God, I can't believe you went there.
Is this a new show title?
No, absolutely not.
You're right. You know how you were cringing over Ben?
No, I enjoyed it. I like making you feel awkward.
No, that's not.
I was fighting the urge to say my mum's listening to this. She won't be. Don't worry.
Wow. Okay. Well, if you really wish to join us live, we are hanging out in game in open. The Chris Mark IV is hanging around the Lave Station bar at our usual table. So, yes, go and enjoy that. And if you can't get to us in game, you can always join the Twitch chat channel, which you can access through laveradio.com/live. Click on the live chat, or go straight to twitch.tv/laveradio. And we're also available on YouTube as well. So, yes, we'll put an explanation into that at some point. But
no, we won't. We're just going to leave it.
Oh, people will just look it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, moving on from that, let's quickly go around the crew, see what they've been up to, and yes, we'll start with Ben.
Right, so yeah, I've been away for a couple of weeks because my gran was rather poorly, and I've been babysitting is probably the most appropriate word for her. I've also been installing Basite Linux on my Steam Deck Chinese knockoff and getting Elite to run on that, and it is a thing of beauty. Yeah, I'm surprised how well Proton and the Steam Deck work.
Lovely. Nice and short. On the subject of technical things, Alec, you just want to show off now, don't you?
I do now. God, it was an absolute living nightmare. I bought myself this beautiful new PC, which I'm very pleased about. I've been speccing it since November, and I finally pulled the trigger on it. It's an AMD 7800 X3D and a 4070 Ti Super, so it's nice. But oh god, things didn't work. The USB ports didn't work, and the joystick didn't work, and weird things like when I ran ED Copilot, it was taking 100 times longer to start up than normal. And I was trying everything. I was going through Windows Defender and turning off every single virus checking option, and I was updating drivers, and I had about an hour-long call with PC specialists who've been bloody brilliant, I have to say. But they did a remote assistance call and just couldn't get to the bottom of it. And in the end, I had like many days of this, several of which I was just regretting the entire purchase. It was horrible. Anyway, I spotted this thing bubbling around in Task Manager. It wasn't using a lot of CPU or a lot of memory, but it just popped up occasionally, and I didn't know what the hell it was. And it turns out to be a thing called Asus Armory Crate.
Oh.
Which comes with Asus motherboards and I guess other Asus software, and it's a kind of update manager, and you can manage your RGB, and Jesus Christ, that software was just killing my PC in so many different and unexpected ways. And once I found it, once I sort of figured out what it might be, I mean, I uninstalled it, and all my problems went away just instantly. And I googled it, and there's a lot of people having a really bad time with that software. So dump it in the Mariana Trench fast if you find it on your machine, because
it's also got a nasty tendency to want to install spam and other crap on it as well.
Oh, not one of those.
I mean, it just destroyed this PC that should have been an absolute powerhouse, and just nothing was, not nothing was working, but most things weren't working. It was horrible. Anyway, it's great now, and I've got Elite up and running, and it looks blooming fantastic. And just 10 seconds ago, in fact, I finished downloading Half-Life Alyx, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Oh, cool.
And my first test of the new PC was doing some canyon racing with the Elite racers on Sunday night to conclude their Winter Olympics. And that is, and I just want to clarify this for several people who've asked previously, yes, canyon racing in Odyssey. It is possible, and it's bloody good fun. So there.
So, yeah, right. Okay. Moving on from there, we'll move on to Claire.
Hi. I've not been doing a huge amount of stuff. I like, when you guys, you able-bodied humans, congratulations on being so able-bodied. But when I've been doing quite a lot recently, and it's taken I've had to take a couple of steps back with my physicality. So I'm trying to get used to walking with a stick again at the moment. So I'm not doing a huge amount of walking, and like 9 times out of 10, I'm out with the stick. I'm not out with the stick. The other thing that I'm working on getting over my phobia of dentistry, and getting a lot of work done on my teeth, which has been instrumental in making me feel a lot better as far as like mentally is concerned, as far as my mental health is concerned, and my dental health as well, apparently. But that's really exciting for me, but really boring and mundane in general stuff. As far as Elite is concerned, I haven't had a go at the buckyball yet. That's my plan of something to do shortly, and just been faffing around in Elite as per usual. I did a bit of BGS because we're sort of in the lull between Titan explosions at the moment, but I'll get back to the Titans at some point.
Yes. Yeah, Haddad is now coming under pressure, I do believe. And good luck for that. Right, Derin, what have you been up to, say, for the last week?
Last week, I've been working on a bunch of stuff I can't talk about. like that's all you're ever gonna get out of a game dev. But outside of that, I've been rewatching the original '90s X-Men TV show. Just because I wanted to rewatch it before watching '97. I made a start on playing Judgment, which is a really cool like Yakuza spin-off game. That's been a good bit of fun. It's got some sort of like typical Yakuza combat stuff, but it's got some interesting detective gameplay mechanics, which is interesting because it's just something that's notoriously difficult to do in games, is to make someone actually feel like a detective. So it's been on my list for a while, and I decided to finally just like play it. And yeah, that's basically me.
Excellent. Right. Let's have a quick chat about what I've been up to. I've been running a couple of missions in Elite in VR, which is, as usual, great fun. And then I did try to do the buckyball on Sunday, but Virgin Media decided that no, you're not going to have any fun on a Sunday. So yes, it was a lot of rebooting routers and shouting on helplines. And yes, at the moment I'm looking at this connection with fear and trepidation. So yeah, that was that. In fact, it got so bad I decided to start playing Cyberpunk 2077 properly, because every time I've given it a quick go and just not get into it. But this time I've been, because of the new graphics card, I was able to shove all the graphic settings up through the roof and then just walked around it going, wow, this place looks fantastic. In fact,
nice.
Looked,
it's on my to-do list.
It's very good.
High on my to-do list.
Oh yeah, it looks amazing and gross at the same time. Reminds me of Dubai, but if all the money ran out. So yeah, that's been my week. Apart from being up a roof and scraping a load of moss off, but I doubt if anybody wants a in-depth explanation of how difficult that is to do. So, moving on. Well, how shall we put this? It has been a bit of a week. And then some, as far as development news is concerned. First off, we will talk about the fact that Frontier has now clarified some of the changes coming to engineering, which will be appearing over the next few months. Apparently, they're reducing the number of materials required for engineering.
Yay!
Yep, increasing the payout of engineering materials from missions.
Yay.
Yes, we want our manufacturing instructions, and we want them now. And also they're increasing backpack capacity so that you can carry all those extra engineering materials.
So just to clarify, the post said these were some of the areas that they were looking at. They didn't say that this is definitely what they're doing.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I don't want to add
I want to set expectations.
Go on,
I want to add to that list because I dipped into the buckyball this morning and I used up an awful lot of my engineering materials souping up my Sidewinder's thrusters, only to realise I'd forgotten to put the enhanced thrusters on, so I've wasted a load of engineering materials. What I would like is a salvage mechanic, so I can throw that highly engineered but useless thruster module into some sort of hopper which spits out at least half of the materials I poured into it in the first place.
I'd recommend not souping and putting soup inside any of your ship components.
100%. That's a really good idea, Darren. Thank you for your addition.
You're welcome.
Yeah. What about fish?
Fish? They run on fish.
There you go.
Put as much fish as you want in your ship.
Exclusive.
Exclusively fly with fish filling up your cargo hold.
You heard it here first, folks.
I mean, a scythe isn't going to take your fish. It will take your people.
Yeah. Oh, if only we could use the fish the fish song, but we can't anymore because we keep on getting hit by copyright for some reason. Right, moving on from there, they've also showed off 2 of the ship packs, which will be incoming in May. The first one is a Type 6 mining laser jumpstart. So yes, it's enough to get you going at mining, but it's not exactly enough to make you uber rich at it. And there's also the Alliance Chieftain AX Combat Jumpstart, which, well, I think the best way to describe it is it's a one-way mission into the maelstrom.
For all the speculation on these ships, I have to say, the clue's in the name.
Jumpstart, yeah. In both ships, they don't have a rebuy unless you start adding new modules, and even then, if the rebuy is the cost of the new modules, and any attempt to sell the ship or strip for module credits won't work, as both the ship and the modules will sell for 0 credits, which is yeah. So let's quickly touch on this.
Can we talk about it next week, do you think? Do you think that will be a good thing for us to actually do a full show and do a deep dive onto those?
Well, yes, I was going to do that, but that for next week. But however, I was going to touch on the press reaction that's been happening due to the announcements last week, which I've not seen this much press about Elite Dangerous since Odyssey, which was weird. I mean, Massively OP did 3 articles, which we'll put in the links, all covering all the new enhancements, including what we're going to discuss later in Powerplay 2.0.
That's a completely different kettle of fish.
Oh no! Yeah. We got Arx Technica. They did an item, and Games Radar did as well as IGN. So yeah, there was quite a lot of articles about this that went into a great deal of I don't know. I think my general impression was that it was well, let's try and hype it up as much as possible to make it sound as bad as possible, and it's not really.
Pay to win is just such a ludicrous, triggering soundbite, and like everyone just jumps on those 3 words and not on the facts. It's like, what? Everyone's talking about pay to win? I must talk about pay to win. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Even Linus Tech Tip picks up on the whole scandal in inverted commas.
Yeah.
And he says, there's Star Citizen off to the side going, shh, don't tell them.
Yeah, nobody say nothing.
Not saying nothing, no. Now, Frontier Unlocked Stream dived into Powerplay 2.0, which we'll talk about in a bit. And, of course, ARF did a final one thing at the end, which was the next ship that's coming is the Type 8.
That was beautiful. Next variant's Type 8. Bye.
Bye. Cheers, lads. Thanks for your input. I loved how at the end of that, when it happened, so many people were like, "That's bullshit. He's just thrown that in as a joke at the end." And I don't think Arthur has ever done anything like that. Legitimately, with the exception of people who decided to lean in on Smarties on a table and make triangles with their hands. Those kind of people need a slap. No, I'm not looking at anyone in particular.
No comment.
I never did that.
No,
I never put Smarties on a triangle.
You were the instigator. I knew it was you doing.
I can unequivocally deny that was me. It was largely Tom.
Okay, I'm all right with it being Tom. I don't mind it being Tom.
I'm more than happy to
throw Tom under the bus.
Own up to shit stirring that I'm a part of. But when it's not me, I can't take credit for someone else's great work.
Oh,
it was good work. It's one of my favorites.
I have never seen people turn themselves into knots or tie themselves up in knots so much over that. It was hilarious. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of our development news for the moment. So I'm going to hand over to Alec for the community news.
And now, to the community coroner.
It's a dead game, innit, mate?
Hello. Yes, I'll do a very brief community news because I've been completely out of touch, so I don't have a massive long list of videos, but some stuff did happen. The Elite Racers had their concluding 6th event, I want to say, in their Winter Olympics series, so there was one every 3 weeks. And as I mentioned earlier, the event was canyon racing in, I've forgotten the name of the location, but it was a fantastic set of canyons. You know those sort of planets that look a little bit like cracked mud?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was a particularly nice set of good deep canyons and a fantastic little figure 8 circuit around one of those. So we had the usual crowd. We were honoured. Sanderling, Commander Sanderling joined us. Whenever I think of Sanderling, I'm often reminded of that scene in The Right Stuff where I think it's Gus Grissom is asked who's the greatest pilot you ever saw, and he's always wanted to say you're looking at him, but what he actually starts doing is waxing lyrical about I've gone blank on the test pilot, Jaeger.
No, Chuck Yeager.
Chuck Yeager. And if you were to ask me who the greatest pilot I ever saw was, I would love to say you're looking at him, but I would talk about Sanderling because just watching him, he flies exclusively flight assist off, and to see him flying around canyons in a highly engineered Eagle at 800 meters a second, flight assist off is wow. It's something to behold. Yeah. Anyway, so it was a really good event, and the final standings in the sort of entire Olympics where we had a tie. If I'm reading this right, we had a tie on points with Sker and Shea Blackwood at top, and then much to my amazement, because I was absolutely appallingly bad at canyon racing, embarrassed how bad I was, I actually managed to tie with Tobias von Brandt, the organizer, in I guess you'd call it 3rd place, and then Sulu by the looks of it, and then Sanderling only turned up to that one event, but yeah, it was fantastic to see him flying. And then, yeah, as you sort of alluded to earlier, no sooner has that finished than Buckyball has started. It was really funny in the Discord because we were talking about whether Buckyball was going to start, and then I don't know what happened. Something exploded in people's heads, and it all happened in the space of about 20 minutes, and suddenly we had a new championship. So yeah, the first race in that Sidewinder Trophy that's being run by Sulu is on now and runs until midnight on Sunday. Sounds like a few of us have had a go. It's bloody hard, actually. It's harder than I expected. I've blown up a lot of Sidewinders trying to fly under the entrance gate to Dav's Hope this morning. I thought
I'm lucky to get there.
Yeah, I thought I'd just give a quick rundown on the calendar and how it's shaping up at the moment. So yeah, we're in April and we've got the Sidewinder Trophy. In May, Mr. Indigo from over in Loose Screws Land is hosting a race called Ring Tossers. I have no idea what any of these races are about, so you'll have to guess from the name. Ring Tossers in May. In June, Caleb and Cola is running a race called Pop Gun. In July, yours truly, I will be running a race called Backman Turner Overcharge. I bet you can't guess what that race is about.
Oh, we ain't seen nothing yet.
In August, Clarissa AU is running Questing on Quixie. In September, we have a mystery race from Psychit.
Yeah, it's a mystery to me as well, mate. Let me start working on it around August, okay, and we'll be good.
Nice. And in October, we've got Once Upon a Time in Leasty by Reiko. So yeah, one a month.
Excellent.
What else we got? Oh, the High Wakes chucked out a couple of videos this week. Both very funny, both commenting on current store changes and where things might end up. I'll leave you to guess what the main subject matter of those is, but they're very funny. I just wanted to shout this out because it's pretty extraordinary. A guy in the Buckyball Discord, but I guess he's around Darplatter94. We were talking, I think it was on Lave Radio, maybe we were talking about the cost of cosmetics and things. And it turns out he is maintaining a spreadsheet of every single available Elite Dangerous cosmetic item. And here's a stunning fact. If you wanted to buy everything it would cost you nearly £3,500. That's mind blowing, isn't it? I find that mind blowing. Anyway,
$3,500.
yeah, £3,500 to buy every single Elite Dangerous cosmetic.
Well, I don't need 70 Cobra skins, so I'm okay.
What else? I did just want to throw this in because it relates to our main discussion, but following on from the Frontier Unlocked, I thought the Burr Pit did Burr is so good at this in summarizing stuff concisely and without adding anything and without taking anything away, just explaining what the deal is in less and arguably better words. So yeah, he has in the middle of their last week's Switchbaits news, they have like a 5-minute breakdown of the Power Play 2.0 deep dive. So it's Arthur's. Well, it was a great interview on the live stream, but it's that whole interview condensed into 5 minutes, and I think he nailed it as a brilliant explanation. So if anyone missed it, then just watch the Burr Pit. What's this next thing?
Oh, the Hutton
Claire,
race. I added it. Hutton. The race to Hutton. There is a bit of a competition going on because Stargoid has now beaten Happy Moon Monkey by a whopping 6 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's wild. What the strat is having pals strategically along the way that you are literally just super cruising to, and then they're refueling to, and then you'll super cruise overcharge again and again and again until you get there.
That is beautiful. That must take some organization. I love it.
Yeah.
That is marvelous.
It's bonkers and wild and very cool. It does involve you needing to have friends that will be willing to go and fuel you. So that's me shit out of luck.
Yeah, I was going to say my takeaway from that is that if you want friends, maybe join the Hutton Truckers.
Yeah,
what seems to be happening over there.
But I thought that was really cool and something to add. That Happy Moon Monkey has been dethroned. Apologies,
Yes.
Happy Moon Monkey.
I think he's just found out about it.
I'd be watching it like a hawk if it was me, so I wouldn't.
It's absolutely nuts that, and I love it the way that they organise it. Oh dear. So if you have a community event taking place soon and would like us to shout about it over the airways, tweet the crew at Lave Radio or email us at info.laveradio.com. Or at laveradio.com, rather. So, just quickly, the in-game events, what has been happening this week? Well, Galnet News caught up eventually and said, well, Oya's been successfully attacked then.
I've got
thank you.
on the pulse.
Yeah, Galnet obvious. So, and that's been it. So, and there's no store alert. Watch out for the store alert next week, though.
There's definitely going to be a store alert next week. Wild.
Oh, just slightly. Right, I guess we'll have some adverts and we'll come back with our main discussion.
He was a space pirate with quirky habits.
Hi. Most people find me quirky. I don't eat in front of people.
She was a busy space liner captain with no time for love.
I've got 50 passengers to take on a space whale watching tour. I don't have time for dating.
But when fate throws them together, the result is pretty inevitable.
You're like no man I've ever met. Forget my job, ship and crew. Where should we go for a date?
It better not be a restaurant.
From Singing and Dreams Entertainment comes a new total immersion experience.
It was incredible. I just put on the headset and it's like I was there, in the story.
Using Singing and Dreams' patented Dreamwear immersion headsets, you'll feel the love.
It were like I could feel everything that lucky ship captain were feeling.
You'll feel the passion.
Let's just say, when they got off, I got off.
You'll feel everything.
Did you enjoy your meal?
Oop. I don't think I should have had that raw seafood.
Signy and Dream Entertainments and Dreamwear headsets, bringing you closer to the adventure. Signy and Dream Entertainment is a division of Signy and Dream military educational software. Combat training software also available. Please be aware that improper use of the Dreamwear headset may lead to psychosis, time loss, memory impairment, and hallucination.
Are you a commander who's tired of interstellar injustices? Do you find yourself constantly needing to express your displeasure? Look no further. Introducing the Manticore Pitchfork, crafted for the discerning commander who demands more than just a plasma gun to make their point. Made from ultra-durable, premium materials, these pitchforks are designed to handle even the most heated encounters with unruly aliens, malfunctioning droids, or pesky space pirates. Whether you're settling a dispute over asteroid mining rights or rioting about a non-compulsory feature, the Manticore Pitchfork has got you covered. With its sleek design and unbeatable durability, you'll be the envy of every commander in the galaxy. The Pitchfork will be in stores later this year, but if you cannot wait until then, you can get 3 months early access by visiting your nearest Frontline Solutions. Order today, and while stocks last, receive a free displeasure beacon. This lightweight handheld device combines all the functionality of a naked flame, but with 0 oxygen requirements. Now you can wield your torches in space, and even for a small fee, change their colour. The Manticore Pitchfork, when 280 characters aren't enough.
And welcome back. Now, obviously, one of the reasons we have such an esteemed guest with us is that Frontier did a Power Play 2.0 deep dive, and it was genuinely a deep dive over on their... it's not Frame Shift Live anymore, is it?
Frontier Unlocked is what it's called.
Yeah, I keep on thinking it's Frontier Unlimited, but for some reason, I know I've got that wrong.
Frame Shift Unlocked today. It's one of those.
It's one of them. We'll just mash it up together. And yes, so we know that Derin worked a lot on the Power Play system that we've seen, and we asked people for questions for Derin.
We also had a lot of questions as well for ourselves.
Real funny when I'm like, I actually didn't work on it at all. I was just all a joke.
It was all a joke. Okay, so we've got Thargoid questions for you then. Because it'll be one of the two.
There's so much. There's so much that we could ask Derin. We've got him in a corner now, and he's just going to say, no, I can't tell you anything about that.
Yeah. So if any of these questions you feel you cannot answer, just say take the fifth or something like that. So,
I mean, as a general rule of thumb, if it's something which has been released and announced and spoken about, I can talk about it. And if it hasn't, then I can't. So if you want to ask me like, is this going to be coming in, or is this a part of the Power Play? If it wasn't spoken about on that live stream, I can't comment on it.
Copy that.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Nice
yeah,
and
there'll be a couple of questions there, which I think we'll have to just get you to say take the fifth on, because looking through them. But of course the big question that everybody's has is, what have you been up to since you left Frontier?
I've been working with a new studio on a totally different project. So yeah, I mean, when you leave a job, hopefully you have another job waiting for you. But not everyone has that luxury. So yeah, I left, got a new role. It's a studio in Liverpool, which I've not moved to Liverpool, but I have visited once or twice now. I was actually there last week for a spring social, which is quite nice. Bloody hell, a 4.5 hour drive to get there was not fun. But the drive back was 3.5 hours, so that was nice, and it was much sunnier. So yeah, Liverpool's lovely. I should visit it more often. I just definitely would if it was closer and or cheaper to get to.
Yeah, Liverpool's one of those places where it can be either really cheap, especially when you depending on where you are, but if you're just that slightly bit off the beaten track, then all of a sudden the costs go up crazy like.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, like
yeah.
where I am and where I was staying for the social, it's like bang in the middle of town on the river, basically. So it's nice. It's really central. It's really pretty. There's plenty of places to go and do. I wish I was there for longer, but I had other stuff to do on the weekend and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I had to make my way back.
Yeah, the one problem that I do have with Liverpool is dodging all the Beatles tourists. When I was working there for 6 months, it was yeah, love the place, but yeah. Right. Well, moving on from there. One question that I'd like to ask. I mean, the community was under the impression that as far as adding new features to the old legacy build, it was incredibly difficult and very time consuming. Was Odyssey a lot easier to work with? And were there things that you can do in Odyssey that you couldn't do in Legacy?
Walk around in Odyssey. That's a big thing.
That's a big thing, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it really comes down to working with an engine, and this will be somewhat true across games across the board. Is there are benefits and weaknesses to using third-party or proprietary engines? And the really powerful thing about proprietary engines is that you can make them do whatever you want. You've kind of got like free reign over that source code, and you can do a hell of a lot with it. And the Cobra engine's crazy good, and it can do so much stuff that you won't get packaged with another engine. But the downside of using proprietary engine is that you have to build it. You have to put that work in. So putting what's effectively an entirely different type of video game inside an existing almost 10-year-old or 10 years in development video game it's no small feat. So it's not that I'm or I was part of that team that had to build and put that together, but fair props to them, because not many people or studios would be able to do that. And I think that it's one of those things where, because it came in so much after, it not necessarily adds to the challenge, but completely changes it. I think when you go into a project with that in mind, everything's built with it in mind, but having to retroactively add something in to an existing system and make it do stuff it wasn't explicitly built for is a bloody hard thing to do. It's hard to take something that's sweet and decide to make it savory, the sort of thing. It's kind of how it works. That's not to say that it went well or badly or anything like that. It's not a comment on the success of it, but it's an incredibly difficult thing to do, and it's one thing I don't think really gets enough credit. The tech team that put all that stuff together is absolutely wild. On top of a game engine that's already doing something that is solemnly, if not completely unseen in other projects and other games. Which is just the Stellar Forge system, which I don't need to sing the praises of the Stellar Forge to you guys. I'm pretty sure that's been done quite literally to death for almost 10 years. So
it's all right. It's all right.
We have to retread that ground.
We've been doing the show for like 10 years, and we've pretty much done everything to death, so we can keep talking about it. It's not a problem.
Yeah,
that's effectively how that works.
I just wanted to chip in on that because you said something that really intrigues me. So I work for a software company that it's database software rather than game software. But so all our software is proprietary, including the underlying database engine. It's 30 years old, so not 10 years old. It's 30 years old. And like you say, the great thing is that we can do anything. What I was intrigued on your thoughts on is that I think we're very reluctant to fundamentally change stuff. Whereas I wonder whether you think that if you're using like a third-party library, say a games engine library, whether in some sense changes are sometimes forced upon you because the developers of the library just decide to make something fundamentally better, and it involves changing it, and they're not scared of making the change sometimes, so they make the change in it. I feel as a developer of software that using 30 years old, that I'm so kind of stuck with trying to maintain backwards compatibility that I'm terrified to make big changes. I don't know if you think that's a thing.
I think it's a completely justifiable risk assessment, right? It's do we put lots of time and resources into building something from scratch and taking people offline from doing things that they otherwise wouldn't? Like, do we have the overhead ability to do something like that, or do we just keep it as it is because it's a case of it ain't broke, don't fix it, but accept that we can't really push it forward without risking breaking it and then having to fix it? It's a catch-22. I think that's where I think as almost as a comment on like the industry as a whole, it's where you see stuff like live service games and games that are built to be live service are now more of a norm, and they have far better of a chance at building something which is slightly more sustainable than something that has to evolve into a live service because it wasn't necessarily built with any of that in mind. And that's not necessarily just from the tech front, that's from the design and monetization and gameplay loops and anything like that. You can take any game you think of and think, well, okay, I might have played this for 200 hours or 400 hours or a couple thousand hours. How long was it built to be played for? Right? So, I mean, there are people that might have played, I don't know, what's the typical completion time for like Ocarina of Time? Most people might beat that in what, 30 something hours, 100 hours, something like that. And there are definitely people that have played that game for tens of hundreds of hours over the 30 years that it's been in existence. Like, it doesn't have 30 years of content, but people will make the content out of it, and that kind of applies to players as well as the people building the game itself. It's just whether you think that it's worth the investment of your time and what the return is on that, because there's a big difference on, are we going to build something because it's more stable and therefore we can keep adding to it, which might in turn give us more revenue, or are we going to put a pin in something, sunset it, and then build something completely from scratch to get a whole fresh heap of revenue? And those are all questions that have to be asked when you're in software development, most of which are above my pay grade, so I can think about them, but luckily I don't have to make those decisions.
Winding that conversation back to sort of the power play shenanigans, what was it that made you decide that after so long of it not being touched, that it would be a good time to start looking at it? Does that make sense? Is that a question?
Yeah. So I wanted to personally work on power play, like probably since I joined the project, but it was just not on the roadmap or in the cards. And I joined as a grad, and it's very like when you join like fresh face out of uni and whatnot, it's like you work on what you get told to work on, and to an extent I still just work on what I get told to work on. It's not really any different. It's just certain levels of agency and responsibility change and shift as you become more senior. So I think that once Odyssey was like rounding up and sort of finishing, or once we had launched it, I remember there being a bit of like and it's very healthy in any form of software development or product release to do like postmortems with your team, discuss the project and things like that. And one of those was like, okay, what do designers think we should add into the game, or what do you think the game needs, or what would you like to work on next? I won't comment on what any other designers said or what they wanted to put in the game, because some of that stuff might be in, some of it might not. So I'll just avoid that entirely. I will say Tom wanted another SRV and he got another SRV.
Good lad. Good lad.
but the two we were asked to do to like give one thing that we wanted to add, and I cheated and I said two, and I basically said I want to revisit Thargoids and I want to redo power play, and those are the two things I asked to do. And I don't know, for some reason they listened to me, and those the two they might have been on the roadmap already, but those were two things that then came in and I got to work on, so I feel quite fortunate for that. And especially with the Thargoid stuff, not that like I completely designed any of it, but like it was definitely something that I really wanted to push for, and I think the whole team wanted to, because aliens are cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the really nice part of that was that, at least from a spectator's point of view, it seems like it's been very well received, all of the Thargoid stuff, and it had such a nice cadence and build up to sort of do all of that stuff. And it's interesting because the two of those were things that I really tried to push for and ask for at the same time, and the development of them were, at least from my workload, they were in tandem. So like I was designing stuff for Power Play and effectively like redesigning the system whilst there were still like updates to Odyssey, like pre the Salvation, like the Salvation storyline was sort of being started, and people designers like were working on the Scorpion and those other missions, and I'm like very, or it might have even been before that, I was very like neck deep in doing Power Play, which had a lot of stakeholder investment in it, because the existing feature had a lot of people that worked on it that are and were quite senior at the studio, and because it had been left for so long, there was always that worry of like, how much of it can we touch, how much of it can we change? And when I asked, how much can I change, like what's the remit, the answer I kind of got given was, what would you do if you got a blank slate?
Oh wow, that's so scary.
Which is, yeah, it's a scary thought process to think like, well, how do I take something and completely redesign it from scratch? And the truth is, it's a trick question. You don't, but because there's existing expectations and things with it. So my initial approach was, how do I take something which people have like an understanding of its premise and what it is, and a lot of its language, and how do I come up with something that best delivers what I think its initial like mission was, which was to represent like large corporate like entities effectively warring with each other, for lack of a better way of saying it, because it's not literal war. And I sort of designed it from that point of view, but then obviously I know that I'm not going to put in new powers or completely change all the powers. I'm not going to change all of the language and terminology. So it's figuring out how we can use those existing languages and like jargon keywords and fit them into a new system, which is why the notion of expanding and undermining and control all baked in still. So there's very much like this looks like the same system, and that's kind of the intention. So it's undoubtedly a completely fresh system with the way that it works from your end and from the back end, but it's been designed so it feels like an update, a smooth transition, because you don't want to just rip something out and shove something new in, because there's a bit of a schism that it creates, and you never know exactly how that's going to land. But hopefully this is something which feels familiar, and because it's been built with the notion of like, people have already put a lot of time and investment into what Power Play is, it was trying to keep that initial spirit of it alive in its redesign. So I think that's kind of what I was keeping in mind the entire time. It was like, yeah, how do we give something which, one, existing people that play Power Play can carry on playing the new Power Play and be like, this is awesome, and hopefully this is better. And how do we build it in a way which someone that's always looked at Power Play and been like, I'm gonna grind this until I get my modules and then I'm just gonna bounce, and how do we get them looking at it and saying, oh well, I've finished everything else in the game and the thing that's left to do is Power Play. So we wanted to switch it from being something which you almost feel like is arguably a bit of a chore, you just do it for the sake of getting the modules, to one of two things. One, this is where the end game is playing Power Play and really driving it forward. And or this is just something which you are always doing tacitly in the background, and it becomes a complete part of your player experience as a new player or someone that's starting as a fresh commander. And that's something I really wanted to sort of make work. And the
Right.
BGS was a good analogy for it, right? So the BGS, no, like you can play the BGS, but the truth is, if you are playing the game, you're playing the BGS because of it's just responding to whatever players want to do, right? And to an extent, the intention is to make power play work in a very similar way. So, and it's kind of what I can't remember which one of them, the very two talented designers, mentioned it on the live stream. It was either Luke or Curtis, but it's effectively removing that voting system means that players are voting with their actions. If you want to work on a system, if you want to undermine a system or expand a system or into a system, you just do it. You do the work there, which means that instead of players having like an intrinsic amount of like voting, and they're like spending they're spending like merits, and everything worked on spending of the powers command capital and all of that stuff. It was just very abstracted.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, this is kind of, if you do the work, it's worth value.
Yeah.
And if you do more work than the person next to you, you are worth more than they are because you've put in more work. So what it's effectively doing is just weaponizing people's time and effort. The more time and effort you put in compared to someone else will be reflected in the power. And then that gets reflected for the power as a whole. If one power's got more people putting time and effort in, that power's going to be making more moves. If a power is very focused, then they might dominate in a specific area, but they're not spreading out their forces. They might actually just have a very small, incredibly strong bit of territory, whilst another power might have a very expansive but quite weak territory. That's kind of what we wanted. We wanted it to just be commensurate with player effort. It's kind of like time is money, right? And why are you spending some fictitious currency when you can quite literally spend your time? And that is what drives the game forward, which is basically the mantra of the new power play entirely.
Nice.
So with that in mind, when we're talking about that, I'm going to slip in a very quick question here, and you're probably going to say that you're not going to be able to answer. But if we got asked by DJ Wiley, Commander Cronenberg, Commander Homburger, and Commander Caitiff, all asked the question like, what is there to stop people jumping around between different powers just to get the Prismos and the Packhounds? It wasn't mentioned in the stream, and it was probably one of our most popular questions was, are prismatics still going to be attached to Ashling and stuff like that? If you can't answer it, I'd just like to get it out of the way now.
I can half answer it.
Okay.
So whether certain modules are going to be uniformly distributed amongst the powers or attached to specific powers, I don't actually know. That's a level of specificity that could have quite easily changed since I've been away from the project. And because mind you, like the work that I did on Power Play was before any of the Thargoid War stuff.
Right.
Like to put like time scale into perspective. So this was designed, and I was starting to design the Thargoid War system at the same time. And because there's like a lead up and a time scale and things are moving with story and whatnot for the Thargoid War, that's what we're then Thargoid War. That's what we were then like actively putting into development at the time. So the resource was going into Thargoids, and Power Play was sort of like sat there packaged as a design. And oddly enough, when I moved off of the project, the week after I moved off of the project was when like Power Play came on. It's like, oh, we're doing Power Play now. And I was just messaging the guys, and I'm like, I know that I'm on a different project now. If you want me to explain anything, like if you want me to go over anything or reiterate any of the documentation, just let me know. And the guys were like, you can let go. But it's hard to not be attached to your work in that sense. But
Yes.
that's and it was beneficial that I was literally on the same floor, like 4 desks. My desk move when I moved on to another project was literally less than a 40-second walk. I literally just picked up my machine and walked to the other side of, like, not even the whole office, like a block of desks, and then I was working there. So I mean, I could literally hear conversations happening, and I'd yell like, "That's not how that works," and it'd be like, "Shut up. It's not, this isn't your world anymore." But yeah, so to get back on point to the question, what's stopping you from moving between the powers is those bonuses and those ranks of the powers. So yes, you could get a really cool module and you unlock it, and then you bounce around your powers, and you could collect all of the modules for all of the powers and then land a power that you want to stay with. But the truth is that that's kind of what is meant to be like juicy, like systemic rewards is what at least what I intended for the retention to be, which is like, yeah, sure, you can bounce around and play all of the different powers, and arguably maybe that's something which should be encouraged to an extent, right? Like if you're going to put potentially hundreds of hours into supporting a power, whilst you might want to support the one that has the political ideology which aligns with what your commander aligns with, because let's face it, people don't necessarily project themselves into the game. People project the worst parts of themselves into their commander sometimes. I think that it's worthwhile, like, bounce around between powers, see which one matches the way that you want to play the game, especially if the intention is for you to be playing power play for the foreseeable future and potentially over the entire time of your experience with Elite. You should figure out what power suits you best. So, I mean, I would encourage that, but it's those systemic rewards that go up in the tiers, those should be keeping you about massively. And in terms of what keeps you playing and caring about them, because obviously you don't go down in those tiers, that's that intra power play leaderboard, which was something that I put forward, which is effectively you treat each week or each cycle for a power play. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be on a per week basis. I can't remember if it was on a per week basis. It's been a while, but each cycle for power play will effectively be treated almost like a CG for that power, right? So everyone does power play and does work for that power, and those people get rewarded based on how they place in the power itself. So yes, you are fighting other powers to make sure your power comes out on top, but you're also fighting inside your own power to be the top contributor for your power, which should potentially even have like a nice self-balancing effect, right? If the rewards for hitting that top 10 or the MVP are juicy enough, then maybe you actually want to support a less supported power because you're going to be more consistently doing well in that leaderboard versus, oh no, everyone just dogpiling the power that has everyone else in because that's going to be the winning power. It's like, yeah, sure, they're going to eat up all of the space and the systemic rewards might be tied to that space, but you as an individual might be massively missing out because you're actually hitting the top 75 percentile rather than the top 10 percentile. So the leaderboards, I think, introduce a nice healthy sense of competition and perspective in that sense as well. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely did.
Minutes of
definitely
rambling.
did. It was great. It was great. It more than answered my question. So I think the impression that you're giving to me is that, like, if it does stay the same and it is the same thing that continues, say you can only get Prismos from Ashling, there are still going to be those people that will hop between factions and will not see the benefit of climbing those ranks in the same way that a dedicated person to Ashling, for example, or to anyone else. I'm just seeing a lot of Ashling because all of the artwork and all of the assets have been
it's just UI placeholder.
Yeah. Definitely not subliminal messaging. Make sure Aisling wins or anything along those lines. So
I'm pretty sure her name's just first in the list.
Say that again. I didn't catch that.
Her name's just first in the list.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I believe you when no one else would. On the back of that, do you think that there is something about Power Play 2.0 that makes it more engaging and accessible to those people who are the people who are jumping around? I know you've kind of probably answered it. You have answered that already, but is there something that, like, the average Joe who's like, I don't give a shit about Power Play, does Power Play 2.0, is there something key that you think that would change their mind on that?
I mean, no one can make you care about anything.
Exactly, yeah.
The truth is, and people can choose to just hate something for the sake of hating something. But I think that if you look at what your motivation is for playing Elite, then Power Play should be reinforcing that.
Mm-hmm.
If you are someone that likes a certain type of gameplay, then specifically gameplay within the bubble, anything which is like interfactional or interpersonal between like other human beings existing inside this like pocket of the like inhabited galaxy, that is what Power Play is. So
Cool,
it's
confirmed.
effectively just you playing the game. I think that there's I don't know if it's from anywhere else, but I remember it from Futurama. But that lovely quote where there's the episode where Bender becomes God, where it's like, if you do something right, then people won't realize you've done anything at all.
Yeah.
That is kind of what I always wanted out of Power Play. Like, yes, you can be actively playing Power Play, but you could also just sign up to a power and at the end of the week be like, oh, okay, I did pretty well, and I'd get a salary at the end of it. And that's kind of what I wanted out of it. Because it makes you just feel like you're part of a collective. And there's systemic rewards for being part of a power. There's systemic risks for being part of a power, which is like some of the stuff that they touched on in the live stream. Like if you drop into an instance of someone's carrier stronghold and you are not part of that power, they're going to tell you to jog on, right? So those are just the sort of like the peaks and troughs of how that works, and it's expanding the way in which Power Play exists in the world. It's not just a case of like, oh no, we're gonna change up some like hollow screens and change some artwork, which looks bloody cool. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there. It looks so freaking cool. But there's more to it than just that. You want people to feel like they are amongst friends when they're in their powers territory. You want players to feel like they are not supposed to be where they are when they're in territory that isn't belonging to their power.
Yeah.
And that's the intention of it. It gives a sense of place and scale.
Yeah, because at the moment, like I fly around and I see the little hostile thing in the bottom right, and I'm like, well, it means nothing. It doesn't feel like there's any more danger to me for that being the case. But if with the implication of 2.0, that's actually going to mean something, and it's going to be like, okay, I need to consider what I'm doing before I go into this system because it is a hostile system. That's really fascinating.
That's what I was always hoping that Power Play 1 would be, that there would be areas in Power Play 1 where if I was a federal player, that I really wouldn't want to go to this particular place in the Empire, because I know that there are places that I would be attacked on sight, but it didn't turn out that way. So, yeah.
I definitely think that there's something to be said about like the ability to telegraph geography in space. It's quite difficult to have a sense of where you are, like especially when you're in Super Cruise. Like, at what point do you leave the jurisdiction of one faction and enter the jurisdiction of another faction outside of just your HUD changing the name of the faction at some point, right? And the new maps massively do a lot of work to help with that, with planning. So when you're looking like inside a system map, you can see all of the different stations and planet ports, and they've all marked with a faction, and I think that's really cool. But with Power Play, because it's a system-wide thing, it's slightly more legible in that sense. Like, yes, you can know when you're jumping into an Empire system versus a Federal system, but it's very rare that you're in a position where the entire Empire hates you. And when you do, and you've got your interstellar bounty, you get sent to the big boy jail as a result, right? When they finally get you. But with power play, that sense of positioning, because it is system wide, and because it's not like with factions where you can go into an imperial system and there are federal factions there, or there are imperial factions there. The system is an Archon system, or the system is an Ashling system. That is nice and cut and dry. So I think that gives potential where you potentially didn't have with the BGS. Again, that's partly conjecture and speculation on like how the system's going to be or is being implemented, but that's effectively the benefit that something like Power Play gives over the BGS, is because it's system wide.
Excellent. We've got a question here from Nicey Guy. Is there one possibly crazy idea that you wanted to put in Power Play 2.0 but couldn't?
There was one thing, but I can't talk about it. But it was something that complicated the system slightly, and I think it was in when I left, and it's since been simplified since I have left. And I remember poking the team about it and saying like, "You made this change for a simplification, didn't you?" And Luke was like, "Yep." And I was like, "Do you know what? If I got told that this bit was too complicated, I would have made the exact same change," which is just really cool because it shows how in sync the team on Elite is. Like, the designers just know how to weave and duck like certain problems and make things work. So it like the moment I saw that a certain thing had been changed in live stream, I like clapped at my screen like a fucking seal, to be honest, because it's very cool, because I was never posed with that problem and I never gave the solution, but convergent design is a thing and it happens, and it's very cool when it happens. It will even happen in a meeting sometime where a problem will come up and two people will just say the same thing out loud, and it's very, very cool. So there's that as a one thing. Sorry, that's lots of me playing the noun games of like the thing and the stuff, but I can't talk about that specifics because you'll never really know about it. And there's another thing which again to piss people off that is going to go into Power Play. It's something, at least I'm pretty sure it's going to go into Power Play. It's something I will be very, very excited about, and if and when it gets announced, I will be tweeting about it. Because it was the first thing I ever pitched as an idea on Elite, like at the project. So I sat on it as an idea, just like with my fingers and toes crossed, like just waiting for the chance to sort of get it in. And when I first pitched it, the response I kind of got was, that would be great with Power Play. And I think at that point I was like, okay, so now I want to work on Power Play. Like almost the entire want to work on Power Play largely came from me wanting this thing in because I thought it was really cool. So hopefully that comes in at some point. It'd be very, very cool.
That sounds well.
It's not a massive game-changing thing. It's almost like such a little small interaction-y sort of like it's just a nice little thing that feels very cool as a concept to me. And the moment I started working on Elite, and when I came onto the project, I hadn't played Elite before, and I was playing the game and I was learning about it, and as I'm playing I was like, why isn't this a thing? This would be so cool. And everyone on the design team was like, yeah, we'll put it in the list.
Yeah,
because every designer's got 100 things. They're like, this should go in the game. It's so cool. Which is the bane of game development, really, because everyone has cool ideas. Everyone has good ideas which are achievable. It's just if we did all of them all at once, then nothing would ever come out. So that was my one for me. It's by far not even the best idea or best thing that I would have worked on. It was just the first thing, so it's more of a sentimental thing for me than anything else.
Excellent. We've got another question here from this is from Chebs, Will, and Little Biggin. They've both asked the same question, really. Will Powerplay 2.0 have a direct influence on the factions in the system? I.e., having a faction that is aligned with a superpower make gaining influence easier? Or is that?
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not
I
going to
think
comment
you
on that.
wouldn't.
My answer to that is going to be ask Luke. Luke can answer those questions. Ask Luke.
Do you think it's going to be? Do you think it's going to be? This is probably going to be something else that you can't answer, but I'm just going to say it anyway because fuck it. Do you think it's going to be like we're going to see power play and BGS more directly linked? Also, is there any benefit to a squadron no longer like choosing just not to align themselves with a power play leader, like for example, my faction hasn't done at the moment?
To the first question, ask Luke. But
Thank
to
you.
To the second, ask Luke.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the equivalent of take the fifth, so isn't it? So ask Luke from now on.
Luke,
right?
For sure.
Okay. We got.
He's gonna message me and be like, "Why did you? why have you done this? My inbox is lighting
Twitter.
up."
What have you done?
From everyone.
Yeah, and Luke can be obtained by emailing.
No,
we're not doing that.
No, you don't.
The answer to that question is ask Luke.
Yeah, you can message Luke and ask him, "How can I contact you?"
Yeah.
Well done. The people have noticed that the stronghold carriers have some old fleet carrier assets. I mean, if Elvis Kremen asks, when Powerplay 2 was first discussed, were the old fleet carrier assets sort of highlighted as, hey, we can get a use out of these things now? Or was something else going to be used?
It's kind of a mix of things. I think we had a lot of those assets which we weren't necessarily. It's not that they were just for fleet carriers. They're kind of just a bespoke set of like megaship assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had them, and we were working on building a bunch of different stuff with it. And it's kind of like we got the Lego kit, and we never knew what to build with it. And that's kind of the best way of saying that. So over the years, a bunch of stuff was like spoken about, and we tried things, and we prototyped a bunch of stuff, and nothing just really landed in the right way. And then by the time we might have had something which was really going to work, other stuff came along. Well, God, when was like the fleet carrier stuff went in? It was like just
80 years ago, probably, I think.
I was going to say it was just after the Beyond season, right? So
Yeah.
that was around the time I think that like a lot of the initial work was like going on for Odyssey. So I think it was just a case of development time shifted, and it's not like they were forgotten about. It was just like we couldn't get round to them. And then when Power Play came on, I was like, we should do these. I was really keen on sort of like pushing for having that almost that Monopoly feel, where you sort of like you're upgrading the system and pushing it upwards. It's like you get the Monopoly, you get the house, you get the hotel,
on it, yeah.
and this is kind of like what that is. It's like this is the crescendo of a power's presence in the system. It's like, how do we do that if we're already changing the banners, we're already putting lovely blue lights on all of Ashling's starports? It's like, well, what's the equivalent like step up from that? And I think having a base of operations is really cool, because it means that it does a few things. One, it can move, so it's not like, oh no, we introduce this permanent structure and then what happens when they get kicked out, or another power takes over, then do they take over the starport if we were to do a starport or something like that? It just becomes a bit messy. So megaships or like these carriers kind of work around that in a nice and neat way. And because so many have been in the game for quite a while, and because even players have access to these things, making it almost like a fleet just was the upping of that ante, right? So that's kind of where that came from. And they're really, really cool, right? Like why not put them in there and be able to say, look, this is our exclusive club where we get to go and hang out and like disembark and walk around and or whatnot, whatever you can do at those. But yeah, that's kind of where they came from. So yes, it was a case of we can use those assets, but it was something which was. It's not like we didn't want to use them. It's not like we've said, oh no, these are rubbish, and then it's like, oh no, we're gonna salvage them or something. It was more of an excitement of, oh, we finally got a great excuse or a great thing to use this because it falls in line with what we're doing. And I think Tom went over this really well in one of the live streams where he was talking about the Scorpion, right? Nothing's like put in the trash. It's put on the shelf, and it's not necessarily a case of saying this is bad, so we're not doing it. This is sitting on until it has the better time to shine. Because sometimes you can release something at the wrong time, and it just doesn't land as well because it's not as cohesive within its releases as it otherwise could have been. So, like, to put it into perspective, we could have released like a single like scenario that you can drop into that's like a USS or something, and it's got like a fleet of these ships, and I don't know, like they ask for fuel or something, and it would have been so lackluster compared to something like this where it's part of this nice big holistic package, and it feels like it has a really good place when it's released, and that's kind of that's where this falls into.
Right. I mean, that's yeah. It's actually quite nice to see them because we saw them all on the build up to fleet carriers, and then they were suddenly dropped. So it was very nice to actually. Oh, look, there. But I'm like that bit in Leo seeing the Leo DiCaprio meme where he goes pointing at the screen, going, "Hey, look."
So, yeah, a little bit like that.
Little Begin asks, what do you feel is your magnum opus in Elite? He says, looking up what he means.
I don't know. I try not to think of that of anything like standing out like that. And the truth is, like, no work is mine. Really, it's not exactly how development works, and I know that might be like, oh, I'm just being humble or something like that, but the truth is that is really just how it works. It's very easy to be a designer and write some stuff on paper, but then you've got other designers that are more technical designers and they build it, and you've got artists that make it look much better than your like horrible looking scribbles. Like the UI like stuff that's on the screen now that people will be looking at, that was initially me just bastardizing screenshots of the existing Elite UI and creating like mock-up buttons and things like that, and it's to sell and I like articulate the idea of what it is that I'm trying to sell to people internally so that we can then get approval and then build it and then move forward. But it's a lovely, talented UI designer that's made it not look horrible, right? So, like, I think the better way of looking at that is like, what was I, or like, what part of the game have I been most happy or proud to work on as a whole? And I think, honestly, the year and a half to 2 years post Odyssey, I think was a really good and fun time to work on Elite. I think that we did a lot of work to that was very much feeling like building back a sense of excitement for Elite, with additional updates with like the fleet carrier interiors and the extra Odyssey missions and the Scorpion, and all of that storyline with Azimuth and the building and of that anticipation and the the sort of like the dripping of content are like at the exact right times of releases, all leading up to when update 14 launched and that kicked off. I think like that entire process was just really, really cool to be a part of, because it's like I was mentioning earlier when we were chatting about live game content, right, and games as service content. Like Elite was out before people were even saying games as service. It just wasn't in the public lexicon. It wasn't a thing, right? So we had like community goals and things like that, and we had Galnet articles, but the scale of what was done for the Asma Saga was something which was not done in Elite previously, and not many other games had done something similar. Yes, other games had done something similar, but we were really proud about the way in which we delivered it, the way in which we had update. And I'm trying to figure out the numbers. I think it was update 13 when the weapon launched. Was it update 13?
Good question.
Was that 12? I think it was 13.
It was around that, yeah.
Yeah, so when we launched that, right, and it was just down to, we knew what was going to happen. We had like the timeline in place, and I remember being in a meeting room with game direction and Ben and Luke, and we were just spitting ideas. We were like, okay, we know that we're doing like this build-up stuff, and we know that we've got like this war coming, and we're trying to figure out how are we deciding what are we putting into the war, what are the mechanics of the war, and what's the system behind like the Thargoids moving and expanding and players fighting back, which is very much like my wheelhouse of how that stuff was working. So I had like ownership of that, but then it was in those intermittent updates that were leading up to it.
Yeah.
It was, you had so many other people sort of chiming in of like, we should do this, we should do that, and I think all of that was it's just exciting because it just feels a bit like an orchestra, like everyone's sort of like playing their part and it's all coming together, and it's being done live, right? It's not necessarily a case of, oh, okay, each different person is working on their things and we'll then weave them together. It was very short succession, quick, rapid development, and it was just really fun to work on. I think like maybe if I was to say a specific part of that, I think the interaction between the relic and the Thargoid surface sites, that was one of those ideas where I'm like, I think that this is batshit insane, but we should do it. And when I spoke with Luke about it, he laughed his ass off and was like, yeah, we should totally do that. That sounds cool. And then we tried to pitch it, and he was like, oh, so what do we just like? Would we just like announce that something has changed inside the surface sites? And Luke and I don't know if we were like being stoic or trying to stifle a laugh or something, but we had to look someone who was basically approving this dead in the face, and we're like, no, we're going to put about a couple of months of work into making this thing work, and we're not going to tell anyone. And that's a very hard thing to sell. And he was just like, we're going to put this work in and potentially no one sees it. And we looked him dead in the eye. We're like, the players will see it. We were like, we give it a week. And sure enough, within a fortnight, like it was found, and someone was just like, I made it green. What do I do? Right.
I mean, there has been precedent for that in Elite, was like just putting the bases out there and just leaving them, or like little bits of lore and shit that you can go and interact with out in these ethers. So that Elite does set a precedent for there being things that just get added to the game when people don't discover them. But
100%. So there was precedent for putting something in and not telling anyone, but it was the work alongside other stuff that was already being worked on, because it immediately comes as like that's a cost that we're allocating resources to this thing which someone might never see, instead of allocating it to this big thing which everyone needs to see, right? and that's where that works in. And the surface sites themselves were something which was built and put into the game a long time before we were then making this change. So like back onto the whole building, making something do what it wasn't built to do. Like even that came with some challenges of being able to put something in and change it into another item with like a bit of a switch of hands sort of thing. And it's like, how does that work? And we ended up having like 6 or 7 different versions of like, at what point do we change it? Do we hide it with like VFX and it's blue and it changes color? Do we have it go in blue and come out green? And all of these different variants of it. And I remember just capturing clips of every single version of it and then just sending it through in like an email, like, please pick one. I can't look at these anymore. what and it's not just like for someone to say, okay, that one looks cool. It's for art to be happy with the way it changes over, and like if it is being masked by VFX rather than being changed off screen, is it masked very well? Does it look very good? Is the VFX interacting with the surface of the object well? Like, are they happy with the way that looks? It's audio saying like, do we want to add special sounds because something else is changing? And all of these voices have to sort of like have their say, because ultimately it's an implication on their work as well, right? So yeah, we found one, we were like, that looks cool, and then we pushed it out, and then we had to like, okay, so well, what do you do with these things? Like, well, you take them to one of these 2 engineers, but we're not going to tell you to take them to one of these 2 engineers. Because we knew that people would take them to one or the other. And I think that was the really cool thing, right? Was we effectively approached it from, well, Ramtar's the Guardian guy and Palin's the Thargoid guy. So, like, let's hedge our bets. Where do we think that players are going to start taking them? And then that became the whole thing of marking when you jump in the system, or you get close and you get the message and you drop in, and bypassing the invite for the engineer system because you've got the special thing that they want. All of these were just unforeseen. Oh yeah, we kind of forgot about that. We legitimately forgot, like, not everyone will have access to these engineers from the get-go, but we want players to be invited because we want them to take part of part of this narrative if they have the item. So like we build in those exceptions to rules that we had already pre-established, right? So, and that's kind of what game development is. It's like every time you want to add something in, it's like, how neatly does this add in, or does it have to slot in and push the marbles around for anyone that plays Kaplunk? That's kind of what it is.
Cool. Derin, because we're sort of skating around HOP 22460, there's a question I wanted to ask. So the whole sort of salvation event, delivering that as a cutscene versus what we've seen recently with the Titan destructions, where we can all go and witness it live in game, was that a decision to do it as a cutscene based around the nature of the content, or has something kind of changed in Odyssey that's enabled things like witnessing the Titan destructions as a live in-game event? Or is that beyond your time and you're not sure?
I think that it was the decisions that I weren't necessarily part of the making of, but I will say that the destruction of a Titan, we knew that it had to be spectacular. And from the get-go, I think that we went into that basically saying, like, we want players to see this blow up, and we want players to see it blow up in game. So it's more like an incredible amount of work was done to make sure that that thing was done right, and we knew that we didn't want to do that in any other way other than this thing blows up like any other ship. And I think that's kind of it makes it feel. It felt right. How in which that, I mean, I remember being in the meeting of like, how do we handle that? I did at one point very, very candidly pitch. I was like, we should just draw a radius, and if you're too close to it, we just blow up everyone that's within a certain range, and anyone else that's slightly further away does get to see the fireworks. That didn't land so well. I was always an advocate for chaos, if I'm completely honest.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
surprisingly.
so shocked at that. I'm so shocked.
But yeah, it was just like, no, this is what we want, and we're gonna make it work. And whilst I was off, the guys that did work on the Titan stuff really nailed it. It's pretty much like what I'd worked on for the Titan was paper design for a lot of the interactions and like parts of like the turret, and paper design for like the combat loop, but hands off completely. I was off the project long before any like actual combat with the Titan was happening internally. So like massive props to Curtis and Tom and Hannah and Luke and Ben and just that entire team putting that together. They're really like knocked that out of the park. As evident by like how much everyone seemed to have completely loved it. I've never seen so much glee at watching this poor living thing die. Right.
A bunch of pixels, Derin. Derin, it's a bunch of pixels.
No, it's not. It's a queen.
It's a bunch of pixels. A follow-up question to that. Was it always a finite 8? That might not be something you can answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Was it always 8 Titans? And once they're gone, will they be gone? Also, you probably not be able to answer that question.
I'm not going to answer that, but
Fair.
the 8 arriving was like an intentional number. Like 8 is a nod to a Thargoid number.
Yeah.
Anything post this 8, I'm not going to answer it, but I don't actually have the answer to it either.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's just 8. When all 8 are gone, we've just had it from Derin. True facts.
Explicitly not what I said. I literally just
summarizing,
can't give an
Derin.
answer.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh dear, never let the truth get in the way of a good story, eh, Psychic? Right.
I'm right.
The wonderful French elite dangerous people would like to know what was the most difficult bug the team has faced over the years?
Oh man.
I know one of them.
I can't. That's such a subjective thing, and probably the most difficult bugs that the team has faced was something that I would have had nothing to do with, and I might not have even heard of it. Like it would have been something completely separate to me and just out of my periphery. I wouldn't have known. I do know that as a whole, any bug to do with like terrain deformation and planet generation, those are very difficult to work with. Lighting and VFX bugs or anything that's render driven, very, very difficult to work with, because it's not necessarily just tracking down anything that's wrong on our end. It could potentially just be like a specific hardware issue and stuff like that, as the nature of like computer graphics is. I know that the monoliths were a funny one that was stuck around for a while and kept on cropping up and down as like big planetary poles that were just coming out of the grounds at one point. Those were very funny. And I know that there were multiple issues which caused that, so it was very much a symptom of different bugs that just kept on cropping back. But from the surface, it looks like it's the same bug that keeps coming back, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't even think of what the most difficult bug that I worked on was, and I think it's largely because you don't really like fixing bugs is something that you do when something goes wrong, and I just think that for the most part your brain just caches that whilst you're working on stuff, because if something similar crops up, you're like, oh yeah, we had to fix that or change it, and then we work on it on the new bug, knowing, or like with some past knowledge of a previous bug that might have been linked or similar. But like, especially for someone like me that's now like been off the project for over a year now, I'm kind of like, I just don't remember. Like, that's a really crappy answer, but I literally will just draw blanks to a question like that. And I think it's largely because my brain's just holding on to like the fun of the actual development itself.
Yeah.
Derin done
Yeah, we
I
managed to
can't remember what I was
compartmentalize.
working on today.
I don't remember what I was working on today. You put me on the spot there, and even if I did, I couldn't talk about it.
I mean, there is this one big question that has been in the chat room all night. Where are the vending machines?
That was
machines.
Yeah, so on the first power play thing, on the first power play deep dive, the one that wasn't the deep dive.
Shallow dive.
Yeah, the shallow dive. Arthur and Luke kept mentioning how different the vending machines would look in each station. And there's been quite a lot of discourse as to what the actual vending machines are, because no one really realised.
So I think that might be a dev term that's just popping up. I don't know, but if I was to speculate, I would guess that it's literally just a term for the screens in the stations which change, and they not necessarily the terminals, but even like just the floating screens which cycle through different adverts and things. I believe they might be referred to as vending machines, but I mean, it's not worth quoting me on it, because if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think that it might just be one of those cases of a dev term that's sort of like slipping through without necessarily something else. Because I would probably refer to those as holo screens or holograms or adverts or something.
Right.
But I also know that that's what that might be internally as well. So it's probably an art term, which is why I'm not familiar with it, if it is like an old existing thing. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I wish I did.
Fair enough.
Right, so that goes to another one to ask Luke then.
It's going to be like Maxler. We'll just never find the vending
That's going to be
machines.
ask Luke, because I don't know rather than I can't say.
And the final question that we've got, apart from power play, is there anything that you would have really liked to have a crack at Elite Dangerous?
Oh man, if you ever get a hold of Luke or Curtis and you ask them how many pages in the proposal section in the documentation did Derin write? They will probably say like 75% of them. So like I ended up creating a space inside our documentation for proposals, so that, because there's like, before everything went on cloud and online and it was all server driven, like my first set of proposals, we had like an emailing thread for the other designers, which were basically all senior to me at the point where I joined the project. And I'd write a proposal in a Word document, and I'd just email it to everyone saying like, "Hi, can you read this and tell me if you think it's good, and maybe one day
feedback, please.
it will go into the game." And I was not a fan of that as a system. And then we got new tools, we got new ways of doing documentation, and I was like, I just want a space where if a designer's got an idea, they can write it up and they can just plop it down. And what that would mean is, hopefully in the future, rather than being like, oh, who's got an idea of something we can put in an update, someone can literally just open that and be like, oh, here's a lovely like candy store of pre-written like design ideas that a designer sat and thought about with some level of passion and enthusiasm, because ultimately you're always going to be enthusiastic about something that's just come to you rather than you've been asked to work on it, right? And there's a bunch of stuff in there. That one I mentioned earlier, which may or may not be coming with Power Play, that was one of those. That literally was the start of that that section inside the documentation. But there's a bunch of other stuff as well. I think areas of the game I'd love to like jump in and change stuff with. I think that I'd love to make changes to something like piracy. Give like maybe new different ways of doing piracy. I definitely wrote more than one or two docs on stuff like that. It just, some of them are like just so small, and I think that's what's interesting, is you can have this massive big sweeping system change which will have a massive amount of impact and potentially change the way the game is played. Like Power Play or Thargoid War is a really good example of something like that. And those are great and exciting to work on. But the majority of the ideas that will just pop into your head is for designers, it's just not dissimilar to the stuff that you guys will kick around as an idea. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be neat if you could do this? Wouldn't it be neat if you could do that? I think the only real difference is that when you're a designer, you have to be like, okay, what if you could do that? How much of the game breaks? How many gameplay loops like flip on their head because you can now do something which you couldn't do? Or how many other gameplay loops are just completely subverted because you can just sidestep something and do something else and get the same result? Or, I mean, just all abstract concepts without being specific. And I think that that's kind of where design work really like it separates someone that like plays games and has an idea of like, oh, this would be cool, and someone likes being an actual like that's what a game designer's bread and butter is the considerations and implications of what it is they're doing. And the longer a game's in development, or the more if a game's currently in development and it's not been launched, the longer it's in development, the more the stuff's been decided, the riskier that stuff gets and the less space there is for it. And then post a game's launch, does it fit in with the game that we have launched? Does it conflict with its existing identity? Does it fit in with an existing update that we've got planned? Will it fit with any update moving forward, right? Because you could easily say like, oh no, we're going to add this nice neat little feature into the game, and like I mentioned earlier with the stuff that goes on the shelf, it might just never fit in a package, in which case building it and releasing it might mean that it gets released and just kind of goes unnoticed. And that's when an idea like that from like a project management point of view, and ultimately video games are a business, someone will look at that and say, we put time, effort and work into that could have been redirected somewhere else, and no one cares about it. And that might not be because it was a bad idea, it might be because it was just released at the wrong time. So yeah, I mean, is there stuff that I would love to go back and work on? 100%. And most of it's there. It's like written up. I think by the time I left, I was like, I'm done. I can't think of anything else. Which is crazy to think about. And to be honest, if I went back, I'd probably look at those documents and be like, oh, actually, I would change this about this design and this about that design. But that's just designers looking at their own work and be like, it's never done. Which is any creative will tell you, it's like it's very hard to decide that your work is finished, because there's always room for improvement. And with the way games are developed now, we're very fortunate that you can continually improve on them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool. I appreciate the fact that you managed to get like as many of your ideas on paper as you possibly could, even when you left the project. I think that's really cool.
Eventually I was writing them out of spite. Like I was just like, I'm writing these designs, and there's going to be so many of them that you're going to have to. No one's going to come up with a direction or an update to the game and not find a design that I've written which would be packaged with it. That's kind of I tried to like
every single pie.
I tried to min-max and like game the system. Like, so if there's an update to piracy, there's a dock there. If there's an update to exploration, there's definitely a dock there. That's kind of the approach I took. But ultimately, like, I was on the project for so long that there wasn't part of the game I didn't work on. To be completely honest, so I looked at every part of the game and I was like, I want to add this and I want to add that. And definitely from the perspective of someone that wasn't working on the game prior its launch, I joined the project. I think so Horizons launched in December of 2015. I joined like March of 2016, right? So the game had been in its Kickstarter, it had released, gone through its alphas, had its full release, had its first initial launch into the Horizon series. So like there was a chunk of game that I was already coming in on, right? So there was plenty of me to sort of learn and look at things, and you 100% don't want to be that person that just turns up and is like, oh, I want to fix this game or change this game completely. And a lot of the designs really came after working with things quite like intimately and specifically, like just it's interesting because you look at those things and you sometimes have a good idea and you look at it and you realize it would be a good idea if this wasn't already in the game. And that's something which it's a very difficult pill to swallow, because you have to look at something and realize that your idea isn't necessarily bad, and it's not that the thing that's already in the game is bad and therefore you can't put your design in. It's like they're both completely valid, but they're effectively two sides of the same coin, and it doesn't really make sense to have one and the other. You're like, well, someone beat me to it, another designer effectively built that system, and there's just nothing wrong with it. So that's when you just have to say, okay, you make peace and you move on, and then you design something else. And luckily for designers on Elite, it's a bloody big game. So there's so much space for creativity for designers. We could lose entire days just chatting shop and talking about the things which we could add into the game. Some absolutely blue sky wildness, and other ones slightly more feasible, which normally will maybe have a chance of getting in.
Has there been any occasions where you've looked at the forums and went, that's already in our design document?
Honestly, so much. It's infuriating how much you can look at people think, when are they doing that? Why aren't they doing that? And the responses will sometimes be like, oh, it looks like they listened to the forums. It's like, that was written the design for this was in place 6 months before you guys might have been complaining about it, or might have said, oh no, why isn't it so obvious to just do this? And in other cases, it's like, it's so obvious, why don't you just build this or make this change? And it's like, we had that exact same idea and we followed it through and it doesn't work, or it's incompatible with these other systems. Sometimes you'll look at something and something specific as a designer, and this isn't just Elite and Frontier, this is just being a designer on a video game. Sometimes you'll work on something and a specific thing gets cut or changed or unapproved, and you will avidly disagree with the decision, but ultimately you step back. It's not my job to make those decisions, and then it will launch, and then the players will be like, why isn't it like this? And you just pat yourself in the back. You're like, that's what my design was. And sometimes that happens, but the truth is, it could have easily gone the other way, right? And that's when it's not worth being prideful, because you will win some and you will lose some. But when you're very, very prideful over the things you win, it just hurts a lot more when there's ones that you lose. And they are potentially riskier things as well. Like if you want to beat your chest and really force something through, if it ends up tits up, you've basically just invited yourself to take blame for it, which no one wants to take blame for something going bad. So the compromise of that is knowing and accepting the successes are shared successes, because the failures are shared failures. It's very difficult to pinpoint any good or bad thing and say this is entirely because of that person. And then I genuinely mean that. You'll look at any update to any game that you're like, this is absolutely fantastic. It's very rare that you can be like, this is entirely because of this one person, even if they had the initial idea. They're not the ones that constructed it and delivered it to the success that it is, right?
Yeah.
Anyone can have an idea.
Yeah. One final thing, because I have noticed the time when we are beginning to run out. I know that Odyssey was not received all that well, but in other parts of the code, when you see some of the feedback come from some of the YouTubers and some of the comments on Reddit, and it's not what you hoped it had been. How does the team cope with that? I mean, it's not a case of it destroys morale or anything like that, does it?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, some people will take it better than others. Again, it will come down to personal investment in a certain part of the game. If you were really invested in something and you really pushed for something to go through and it doesn't land very well, as well as that whole, you potentially open yourself up for blame. you open yourself up for feeling disappointed in yourself as well. It's not easy, but I think that every time you have a rookie release, it's a learning experience, and it's just an opportunity to keep on pushing forward and improve on it. And you roll with those punches or you don't. I do think that, like, in some cases, certain sentiments are valid. The volume of those sentiments, maybe not. I think it's very easy to be detached from the human aspect of building video games. Like, a lot of people see a company logo and the studio is just a black box that makes the video games, and it's very easy to forget that you've got 5, 10, 100 people that are not like they're just working on it, right? They are spending an entire 40-hour work week working on it, as well as potentially working on weekends if they work on weekends or work on a late night. As much as the industry really pushes to like not have anything like crunch or overtime, it still happens. Again, I'm not being specific. I'm talking very much like industry as a whole, and it's very easy to forget that whilst you might be disappointed in something, you will never be as disappointed as the people that made it and are unhappy with what they might have launched or unhappy with how something's been received. It very much feels like giving someone a gift and seeing that when they open it, their face just drops and they're like, oh, thanks. Or even worse, they throw it back at you like, why have you given me this? It's like, I'm sorry, I was trying. And that's something which you get better at handling the more you work. It's very much built a sense of like building some thicker skin. But in other cases, you have other very talented people that effectively lay down over that barbed wire for you so that you can run back to safety to an extent. And that's where you've got like very, very strong and powerful community teams. And Elite Dangerous has always had an amazing community team, especially over the launch of Odyssey, like Zach, Bruce, Arf, Sally, all of them just absolutely fantastic. Paul, of course, and Paige for a very long amount of time. Like these people are effectively a shield for devs. Who and very like for the most part, a lot of them will be like, guys, don't open Reddit, don't go on the forums, don't look at YouTube comments, just don't worry. Our job is to get that feedback, turn it into objective feedback without the passion and the emotion in it, and just give you guys like, this is what players are liking, this is what players aren't liking, and then we look at that and say, okay, where do we move on from here? It's a far healthier way of working, especially because it's very funny because like when the game launches, if people are happy or upset about things, they write about or towards the dev team, and obviously the community team are then reading that, and they're reading it arguably like indirectly about their colleagues, but it's not necessarily directed at them. And then they will then filter that and look through it. The harder part is that when there's potentially like bad publication or something like that, and then people are atting specific members of staff, like specifically, and that's just not on. It's completely inhumane, and it's just not any way anyone should conduct themselves as a human being. And that's not even a game development thing. That's just a
person thing.
It's forgetting just how to be a human being for a little bit. So I think that's all it really comes down to. Like, yeah, are tough launches tough? Yes, but you very much knew the answer to that question before you asked it to me.
Kind of, yes.
Because how would it not be the case?
Yeah.
Like, no one releases something and people are potentially unhappy with it, and you just like dust off your shoulders and laugh and run away with your lots and lots of money, because game developers, individual game developers make lots and lots of money.
They make so much money. Yes, it's unbelievable.
It's so clear from the recent things that happen in the world. It's so much money.
I think that it's something to really take note of, is like that ultimately game game development is difficult, and a lot of people working in it are extremely talented, and they are very transferable skills into other walks of life and industry. And people choose to be in game development because they care about what they're doing and they want to make awesome games. So if they have missed the mark on that, they will be disappointed in themselves ultimately. So you're going to really struggle to beat up some game devs harder than they're beating themselves up, for the most part, like more than they should. But that's also why it lands so well when you get the praise, and when people really love something, that's truly felt as well. So it's
a two-edged sword, isn't it? Yeah,
it's definitely a double-edged sword. Yeah, 100%.
Right. Well, we were going to go up for a deep dive for Power Play ourselves, but as you've been on, and thanks for asking all those questions, we've kind of run out of time, so we're going to shove all that's our reactions to the Power Play mechanics and so on to next week. So you can tune in and go.
More content, thanks, Derin.
Yes, we got it right. Oh yes, yeah, go on and so forth. So
that's all right.
Any other business this week? We have Claire.
Oh, hi. Elite partners, those members of the Elite Partner Program have got early access to the Python Mark II. So, like early access before the early access, just to clarify. So there is likely at some point tomorrow to be released videos. People will be streaming, all of that good stuff. Myself included, I will be streaming a first look at the Python Mark II from about 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, which is the 1st of May, just to let you know.
Excellent. Yes, so that's that'll be interesting to see. I'm going to wait until it comes out next week before I really hit it big time. Our question of the week, that will be back on Sunday. All the questions that you all suggested, we've already put to Derin. So yep. So we'll just do a quick shout out. So our sister station, the wonderful Hutton Orbital Radio, it broadcasts on a Thursday at 8:30. You can tune in at twitch.tv Hutton Orbital Truckers, or if you just want the audio, go to radio.forthemug.com. For the discerning commander that likes a bit of CQC action, you just check out the CQC Discord at discord.me/Elite Dangerous CQC. We are also giving shout-outs to the following Elite Dangerous podcasts. Well, there's the Guard Frequency, who do other space games as well, and of course the wonderful Loose Screws. There's also, if you speak French,
you let the fucking music do the talking.
I was waiting for you for that. There's of course the wonderful Elite Dangerous, who also do these fantastic missions as well. Now, following this, we do have the latest Galnet News Digest, as provided by Commander Witherspoon and Commander Beetlejude. We'll like to thank all those who have chipped in at the Twitch chat. And the in-game commanders we've had this week are Andy Sharp 42 and Siberius, who have both gone and annoyed the Chris Mark IV. So, special thanks goes to Commander Tokoso, JN Trax, and Alan Stroud, who have created music for the show. And that is it for another episode of Lave Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can then find the contact links at home/contact us menu on the laveradios.com website. Now, do let us know if you have any questions or if there's anything you'd like us to discuss in a future episode. Lave Radio is recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30 and streamed out at laveradio.com/live. So, thanks to Claire. Thanks to Alec.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Derin, as well. Fantastic.
Thanks to Ben.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And yeah, that was amazing, Derin. Thank you. Why did I call Derin? No, where the hell did Derin come from?
Oh no! Wow. Do not mention that.
No, we're not mentioning. No, we're not saying it a third time. You'll be summoned.
No, yeah, just awful. We have the Chris Mark V doing the tech.
You're welcome.
And of course, very special thanks to Derin, who's turned up and had to put up with abuse.
You deliberately call him Derin there.
Did you call Derin?
No, I said it was Derin. Oh, for goodness sake.
Derin, thank you so much for coming on, you lovely bean. That was really, really illuminating.
You were amazing.
If you want me on again, Badger Claire to like continually beg me to come on.
That's not what happened. That's not what happened. I got a DM from Derin going, "If you'd like me to come on, I will come on," and then I messaged him.
I mean, who are they going to believe?
I will share the screenshot.
You can't doctor a DM screenshot. Come on.
No, I can't. I'm not that good. No, fuck you.
And there we have the pleasant way we say goodbye to our guest. Yes. So until next time, Commanders, fly safe. And if you can't do that, well, fly dangerous and be polite.
Fuck off.
Is your life like this? Sounds like someone having an orange inserted into them. You need a safe word.
Space can be lonely.
I'm gonna see the galaxy.
Damn it. No worries, guys. Hold the fort for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Galnet News Digest, 30th of April 3310. We read the news so you don't have to. In this week's news, Titan Haddad is a long way off in more ways than one. And we deep dive into some of the amazing new pay-to-win ships that the Pilots Federation might be tempted to put on sale in the ARC store.
It's likely to be another month before Titan Haddad can be defeated, according to AX specialists. And when the time comes to attack its thermal core, the new overcharged supercruise is likely to prove extremely useful. There's little point in attacking a Titan until its defences have been compromised. For the next few weeks we must retake the remaining 35 systems the Titan controls. This can be done by attacking the Spire sites. The site in Col 285 Sector US-Z B14-7 is recommended at present, and by gathering Thargoid scout tissue samples, which can be turned in at a rescue ship to embarrass the Thargoids into retreating. Attacking the Spire site is currently the best thing to do if you want to take part. Commander Mechan has published a handy guide. When probably right at the end of May we finally get to attack the Titan itself, the Achilles Aerospace Supercruise Overdrive will be almost essential. Haddad is 33,000 light seconds from the jump-in point at HIP 3377. So, unless you want to be interdicted 30 times in a row by irritating but essentially harmless Thargoid patrols, you'll want to be using the new drive. There are rumours that if you navlock on a wingmate in the centre of the maelstrom when you're using Supercruise Overdrive, you might be able to save yourself the trouble of flying in through the caustic cloud. However, Galnet News Digest has not verified this claim. In other Supercruise Overdrive news, Commander Stargoid has managed to shave a whole 6 seconds off Commander Happy Moon Monkey's trailblazing hot and run record. Commander Stargoid completed his Navlock-assisted overdrive run in 31 minutes and 44 seconds. It remains unclear whether anyone can complete the run in less than 30 minutes, but it's equally certain that someone will try.
The Pilots Federation remains resolute that it'll be offering a variety of pre-built and partially pre-engineered ships in the ARC store, despite claims that these ships constitute a galactic pay-to-win scheme. The idea that an AX ship that flies so hot that some have suggested it should have a kick-me-note sellotape to its tail could in any way constitute a serious advantage over the specialised ships that anti-Xeno pilots have spent months perfecting seems a little unusual. The pre-built Chieftain is at best a jack-of-all-trades, a first step on the ladder of AX builds that might whet the appetite without satisfying the hunger to have a truly excellent specialised build. We think it's admirable that the Pilots Federation is sticking to its guns, and we have some suggestions for some highly specialised pre-built ships it might like to consider for the next batch. The Asp Scout heavy hauler build will allow up to 56 tons of bulk cargo to be hauled between stations with the maximum efficiency. Ideal for getting into the top 10 commanders for community goals, the Scout comes fitted with pre-engineered 4E thrusters and Grade 5 dirty drives and drag drive experimental modification. The top-of-the-range 4A frameshift drive comes with a double-braced Grade 5 shielded modification, giving the module loads of integrity and an impressive 22 light-year jump range. It comes with gorgeous flock wallpaper panels for a sophisticated yet understated finish. Lakon may be preparing to launch their new Type 8, but the Type 7 has plenty of mileage left. The Type 7 Racing Special is designed with buckyballers in mind. Fully kitted out with top-of-the-range military-grade composite armour and with 5A thrusters and a 4A engine-focused distributor, this little beauty will be able to maintain an astonishing 199 metres per second, boosting up to nearly 332 metres per second. The three 6A and the three 5A AFMUs mean that no matter what scrapes you get into while racing, it'll all buff out. The Zorgan-Peterson hauler is a frequently overlooked little gem. The high-res Bounty Hunter pre-build model comes with a mighty railgun, as well as an A-rated kill warrant scanner and a frameshift wake scanner to make sure your mark can't shake you off. Power management issues mean that you may need to turn off your shield generator, cargo hatch, railgun, life support, power distributor, frameshift drive, and sensors when you want to use the kill warrant scanner, but it's worth it for all those extra bounties you can make along the way. It's rumoured that some commanders who stream may be getting early access to the new Python Mark II even before it goes on sale in the ARC store. Everyone else is invited to tune into their streams from the 1st of May onwards to watch them win Elite.
And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News. We read the news so you don't have to.